Hi, it's Anne-Marie Cassidy, hypnotherapist and romance author. I hope you enjoy this free opportunity to listen to my first book in the Brigley Prior series, Flora and the Homeless Gigolo. You can find all of my books on Amazon and my author page is linked in the description box. I reserve copyright on both the manuscript and audio file, and neither may be excerpted without my express permission. Enjoy listening, and please do drop a like, comment and subscribe, and look out for the next chapters too. Finally, you will have to suspend disbelief for the lead male character, as I cannot fake a Scottish accent. Please use your own imagination. If you do finish the book, please do consider leaving a review on Amazon, because every little bit helps. Thank you. Chapter 1. Situation Vacant. Experienced and capable kennel maid or dog handling professional required. Live in position as manager/assistant for an up-and-coming show and breeding kennel. Applicant must be a competent dog groomer and will be responsible for the feeding, care and exercise of dogs kept on the premises. Some work with rescue cases is also required. Own cottage provided for the right candidate. Lady Jemima Gartside Smith, P.O. Box 352, care of the Professional Dog Fancier Weekly. Flora felt a little pop of excitement as she scanned the ad again. After 3 weeks of fruitless job hunting, finally something that sounded promising. Not that her sister was continually tapping her feet and glancing at the door, but Freya's due date was fast approaching. And while she and Oliver had been very supportive, you didn't need a degree to work out it was better if Flora and her 2 giant schnauzers weren't still camping out in the nursery when baby Mortimer arrived. She booted up her laptop and located the CV she'd lovingly been hashing and rehashing for nearly a month. All the basics were there: school, college, excellence in dog grooming certificate, 5 years as the head stylist at Poochin Bose, running alongside the first 5 years she spent as Christopher Bonelli's professional handler. Then the fateful decision to accept his offer of a live-in position as full-time kennel manager, sacrificing peace of mind for another 3 years before grinding to an abrupt end and a very swift fall from grace. And that was the question that had been foiling her at every interview. Precisely, how do you explain to a prospective employer that you lost your last position because you refused to seduce Godfrey Smythe Perkins so your boss could win Best in Show at Bagley's? Even as the wronged party, there were penalties for slating your old boss to a new one, but Flora refused to lie to protect Christopher. Not while she had a measure of self-respect left. This was the first job she'd seen where someone might understand the politics. She was vaguely aware of Lady Gartside Smith, having come up against her professional handler recently, and although Smith was relatively new to the scene at top level, gossip of underhand shenanigans was always freely distributed. The little pessimist in her head muttered, "Yes, and she might expect you to do something equally obnoxious." "Hey, Flomo, how's it going?" Flora jumped. She hadn't noticed a presence until the voice spoke over her shoulder. "Freya, how can you have got so big and still be so stealthy?" "It's from years of practice trying to keep my beady eye on you." "Well, you might get some peace soon. Look what I found." She tapped the weekly dog paper that she'd been subscribed to since she was 16 years old, Freya dutifully studying where her sister's finger indicated. "It does sound promising. A bit old school though, isn't it? Writing into a P.O. box these days. Don't ladyships do email?" "Maybe not. She probably sends the butler in the rolls to personally retrieve the mail." "It does sound perfect for you, but you don't have to be in a hurry to leave." "I know you think that, Freya, but I can't just hang around. It wouldn't be fair. Once the baby comes, even if I'm not in the way, Fillmore and Riley certainly will be." "Never. We love having you guys here. I'm more concerned that you make the right decision this time." You've worked your guts out since you were practically a toddler, only to be crapped on time and again. I want you to be happy, and if that means you're unemployed and dossing around my house another few months, well, I can handle that." Flora shuddered. "I can't. Not for much longer, anyway. I don't know what to do with myself. Usually by this time of day I'd have cleaned out a dozen kennels, exercised a large pack of dogs, and hand-stripped 3 show coats. Look at me, my fingers are practically trembling from loss of muscle mass." She extended a hand with the vaguest of tremors. Freya bent and kissed the top of her sister's head. "I love you, Flo, but I wish your life had been easier. It's not easy watching you struggle. Makes me appreciate how lucky I am to be a spoiled housewife." "It wasn't all that bad. Don't forget I've travelled the world. Well, France and Holland anyway. Met exciting people." "Exciting dog people," Freya chipped in. "That's the reason you're still single. Pretty much all the men you've met have either been gay or pretending to be gay so they could get ahead. Christopher was straight. He was married." "Was" being the operative word. He's blatantly gay. Those dog people, you know what they're like. If changing from straight to gay will win prize cards, that's what they'll do. And Christopher could have won prizes for mincing. Flora giggled. "That's rude, and I'm not sure it's politically correct. He did, though, a bit, didn't he?" Her gaze dulled as she thought about what might have been. "You know, I really should have gone ahead and slept with Godfrey Smythe Perkins. He was straight as a die and up for it, if the amount of time he spent leering at my boobs was an indicator. He was even pretty good looking for an older man. I'm single, no ties. I might have even enjoyed it." "And why didn't you?" Freya wound her arm in the air, giving a dramatic eye roll and gesturing for the correct answer. "Because it was wrong, and the dog is good enough to win on his own merits." "Exactly. Which is why there was always going to be a point where you'd come a cropper. Somehow, despite a sketchy upbringing, the pair of us ended up with a proper moral code. And to truly succeed in the dog-eat-dog world, you need to kiss ass like you were born with your butt stuck to your face. You don't have it in you. You crave justice and fairness too much, and believe me, in real life that's not a bad thing." Freya sat down heavily. "Are you going to watch the final tonight, see if he wins or not?" "Of course. I might never set foot in a show ring again, but I'll always love it. It plays to my masochistic tendencies." "Then get that CV printed off and get yourself to the post box, and bring a bloody curry back while you're out. I will not allow this baby to go overdue, and if I need to fill up on spicy food to speed him along, that's what I'm going to do. Ollie will be at his mum's, so we can boo and hiss at the telly in peace." Flora hovered over the print button before hitting enter. Upstairs in the spare bedroom, she heard the wireless printer kick into action, printing out the means to her potential future. "It will be funny if you get the job, like coming full circle. From growing up at mum's, a kennel begging for an intervention, only to end up running an entire rescue." "Don't remind me," Flora shuddered. "The things I saw and did when we were little. If it's anything like that, I won't be able to hack it. I still don't know how we survived mostly intact." She was referring to their past as the daughters of boarding and breeding kennel owner Penelope Marston. Penelope had run a somewhat thriving business until at the age of 46 she'd decided she might like to try breeding human offspring. A brief, calculated dalliance with the rep from Bryson's dog food had resulted in her twin daughters. Nearly identical to look at, they were very different, both in nature and their interests. Flora, right from when she could sit up in a high chair, had adored dogs of all shapes and sizes. She'd fed, groomed, exercised and campaigned them, practically since she was 6 years old. Freya, on the other hand, although affectionate towards all creatures, had a love for all things feminine and girly. Being covered in dog hair for 95% of the day was never in her life plan. Freya patted her sister's shoulder. "Go on, off you go. There'll be wine waiting when you get back." 3 hours later, they were huddled together on the sofa, Flora's nerves drawn tight and her fingers anxiously stroking Fillmore's thick eyebrows as he snuggled next to her. "That's your son up there on the big screen, my love," she whispered into his cocked ear. Freya rubbed her bare foot on Riley's exposed belly. The black schnauzer currently sprawled on the floor in the utterly relaxed fashion only a truly content dog could exhibit. "It should have been Phil that made the big ring at Bagley's," she complained. "I know, but he lost that tooth and scuppered his chances," Flora reminded her with a sigh. "Yeah, that mystery accident that occurred right after he won the group at Windlow." Freya may not have had an interest in dog shows, but her mind was like a steel trap for archiving situations that upset her sister. What was it Christopher claimed? That he banged his lip on the crate when he jumped inside? Funny how that coincided with his own dog, she waggled her finger at the screen, climbing its way up the ranks. "You don't have to go on about it. You know I never believed him. But at the time there was nothing I could do about it. I was more concerned that Phil had hurt himself, wasn't I, baby?" Fillmore gave her a gap-toothed doggy grin. "He still made top stud dog 3 years running. Christopher couldn't take away that legacy." Flora looked back up at the screen. "Hush now. They're bringing the lights down. Smack me if you catch me biting my nails." The pair watched as one by one the finalists were announced. The competitors did a lap of honour while Flora's would-be suitor, Godfrey Smythe Perkins, scrutinised them. The commentator's voice dropped, almost intimately low. "And now the winner of the working group, the giant schnauzer, champion and Irish champion, Ben Vanellier, the Yank." "Yay!" she clapped. "Come on, my lovely Alex, show 'em how we roll." "Boo!" Freya responded as Christopher Benelli minced into view. He pranced into an affected, loping run with his head twisted at an angle. Technically, he was supposed to be watching the dog's progress as he gaited alongside his leg. In reality, he was equally busy admiring the quality of his backside in tight chinos. "Fancy the indignity of having to handle his own dog for a change," she griped. "I don't know. It looks to me like he's quite happy to have the attention. Probably glad he sacked me in hindsight." Flora's hands almost itched to hold the lead, remembering how many times she'd steered Alex around the ring to glory. I'm not the expert here, but I don't think the dog looks so good." Flora dropped to the carpet and moved closer to the TV. Freya was right. Lovely, soft-natured Alex, whom she had reared from a pup, was roaching his back and trying to fight the lead. "Oh no, you asshole. You didn't," she murmured. "What?" "He looks like he's tripping out," Flora groaned in despair. "That cretin probably gave him a pet plus." "What?" "The stuff that keeps you awake when you're driving. Why on earth would he do that?" "Because some idiots think it makes a dog perform better. It's full of caffeine, so it's like giving them an upper. But they can react like they're on an acid trip. I would never, ever let him do it while I was there. It was probably the only time I won an argument. Look at him. You can practically see his eyes rolling. Oh, poor Alex." The pair ground to a stop in front of the judge and then circled him to take their spot in the lineup. By now, Alex was visibly trembling, and Christopher was nervously increasing the pressure on the slip collar around the dog's neck. A light film of sweat was beading his olive-skinned brow, causing trickles to form in the powder he'd applied for his big TV appearance. Freya was visibly excited. "Look at him sweat, Flo. Serves him right. I hope the judge is paying attention for a bloody change. Those other dogs all look class. Look at that gorgeous old English." "Will you stop jumping about? You're making me even more nervous. I don't want to deliver a baby tonight, and I don't give a shit about Christopher. Look at the blooming dog. What if he has a heart attack?" "Could that happen?" "Sorry. Only, I hope he gets his comeuppance. It's about time. There was some bleeding justice in this world." "I know, but not at Alex's expense. God, I wish I was there for him. I can't watch. Tell me when the judge is going over him." Okay, there he is, Flora. Quick, look, you'll miss it. Flora peeped out from behind splayed fingers. This was not good. It was clear from the dog's body language he was thinking about bolting. Christopher's ever-tightening chokehold was only ramping up the apprehension. Alex's eyes looked enormous in his lovely, refined skull, and as the judge went to examine his back end, his upper lip curled. Although the microphones and the judge didn't pick up on it, Flora felt sure there would have been an audible growl. Don't bite him. Whatever you do, don't bite him. Ouch! She glared at Freya, who smiled back serenely. What? You told me to do it. You were chewing your nails. I'd forgotten how heavy-handed you were. The commentator chipped back in. And now to watch him move. He's not giving quite the fluid performance we saw yesterday. We'll just have to see if that affects his chances. Oh dear. Beside a horrified Flora, Freya burst into a fit of giggles. Riley lifted her head off the carpet and cocked her head quizzically. Now even I know that's not good. A mere 10 strides into his lap of the ring, Alex had braked, squatted, and ejected a riptide of projectile diarrhea. Unfortunately, the mics decided to kick in and amplify it this time. The crowd were momentarily silenced, then a few titters broke out, and soon after that audible guffaws echoed around the arena. Every time the dog looked as if he had stopped, there was another little squirt, and another, culminating with an explosive fart. By this time, Godfrey Smythe Perkins was looking a bit green around the gills, and even the seasoned TV presenter was stumbling for a good pickup line. As a flurry of stewards rushed in and tried to clean up the mess, Christopher was steered post-haste back to his spot in the line. The cameras studiously avoided following him. You gotta love live TV. That had more drama than the Christmas special of EastEnders. Freya, this is serious. You can't have your dog get the trots in the best insuring at Bagley's. I doubt that's happened in the whole history of the competition. Christopher'll never live it down. You're too nice. That git got exactly what was coming to him. I only wish I could have a bloody drink to celebrate. The crowd cheered in the background as the toy poodle was pulled out best in show, with the Old English as reserve. The ecstatic smiles on the winning handlers only slightly pinched by the need to avoid breathing in through their noses. All that work I put into him, the conditioning and the training, all that swine had to do was tag along while the dog showed himself. Flora started pacing the floor. He'll get rid of him now, and God knows what will happen. It's out of your hands, I'm afraid. I hate to say it, but if you get this rescue job, that's what your life is going to be now. Witnessing what people do to their dogs and flying in to pick up the pieces. You're going to need to develop more of a stiff upper lip. Alex will probably end up in a lovely pet home, where they'll cherish him for the rest of his life. Best thing for him. I hope you're right, Freya. I really do. You do realise you're cheating on this research. How can you write a gritty expose on life as a homeless person if every time the going gets a bit too rough, you nip to your mates for a bath and a memory foam bed? It shows in these pages you've churned out. It's stereotypical claptrap. Nobody's interested in reading this garbage. Dolores grimaced at the long, craggy figure lolling in her guest chair, his black shades slipping down to rest on the slight bump gracing the bridge of his nose. I see you've had no such problem with the drinking side of the research. Christ, Dolores, have some mercy. The hangover's much grimmer when you get it drinking 3 quid cider. You're pissing me off, Evan. If you don't get your arse in gear, you'll have to return your advance. Ah, shit. Maybe I should do that anyway. My heart was never in this idea. He squinted one of his bloodshot blue eyes at her as Dolores glared at his casual dismissal. Ever since she'd taken Evan McElroy on as a client, he'd tried her patience. He could be a brilliant genius or an appalling waste of space, and it was usually hard to predict which version you were going to get. Today it was blatantly obvious. Go home. I suggest you take a couple of days and give this some serious thought. If you're not going to do this book, you need to pitch another idea sharpish. You forget that I don't have a home anymore, love. Evan, having your girlfriend kick you out is not enough to classify you as homeless. Not when you can go around the corner and check into the Sheraton Park Tower. That's what enrages me the most, because you speak to me as if I believe you're an idiot. I'm sick of wasting my breath telling you what you already know. I'm your editor, not your mother. I'm also the last person left who'll work with you, in this office at least. Do the book, or don't do the book, but do me a favour and get out of my face until you're ready to act like an adult. With a symphony of cracking bones, Evan unfolded his limbs and struggled to his feet. Dolores sighed heavily at the ridiculous man-child. It would be so much easier to deal with him if he weren't such a blatant charmer. He hovered over her at 6 foot tall, with an irrepressible aura and a touch of rebel without a cause. His hair, currently bordering on red, would turn a soft strawberry blonde in summer, and the strong Scottish lilt he'd had when she first met him 10 years ago had softened over time to a sexy undertone. Even Dolores, at a romantically demoralised 59, could get a kick out of listening to him. He had all of that going on before you factored in the rugged, masculine face, piercing eyes, and a body made for rugby or some other deliciously butch endeavour. I love you, darling. You know that? You're always so sweet to me. Dolores came around her desk and poked him in the chest, which in his current state was enough to pitch him back into the chair. You keep overlooking the fact I'm retiring in a year. I want to go out with a bang and one last big bonus. I'm counting on you to make that happen. I want a bestseller, and you're going to give it to me. Evan pitched to his feet again. Aye, aye, Captain. I'll be at Robert's, trying to pull my head out of my arse if you need me. As he reached the door, he turned to look at Dolores and caught the pained look she'd been stifling. If you were sick again, you'd tell me, wouldn't you? Of course, I'm bound to confide in a daft git like you. You're an awful rotten liar, Dolores. All I need is that book. Now kindly fuck off. His stomach pitching a fit and with a lump in his throat, Evan reeled towards the elevator. A lesser female mortal than his editor would have let him stay to commiserate, but if he'd tried to offer her any such affection, he would have likely received a crack across the back of his aching head. In Dolores's world, she didn't have terminal cancer. Through sheer bloody-mindedness, she had outlived all predictions and was here, still working 5 years later. If she did up and die on him this time, he wasn't sure how he'd survive it. In Evan's world, Dolores was pretty much the world. When she first became sick, he never truly believed it. It was only when he visited her hospital bed with the shockingly bad final draft of his 4th book, and she was too sick to rip him to shreds, that he took it seriously. As the lift doors closed, a hand appeared and the door juddered apart. Not a word to anybody in this office. Do you hear me? I get one whiff of my blood in the water in this place and I won't be the only one bleeding. Quick as a whip, Evan snapped forward and planted a big, wet kiss on Dolores's pinched lips, causing her to shriek. He pressed the button and the doors closed again, and he laughed at the very unladylike curse words coming down the shaft. It took the length of time to reach the lobby for Evan to feel decidedly more sober. He couldn't get his head on straight, and although the whole let's write a book about being homeless was turning out to be his worst idea yet, he couldn't think of anything better. In short, he was jaded and deathly sick of himself. As he headed down City Road towards his friend Robert's flat near Corham Fields, he racked his brain, thinking about the books he'd written so far. His subject matter, broached everything from the history of the Crimean War to the ghost writing of teen idol Rachel Summers' autobiography, the latter being the absolute low point, critically speaking. It was a sad day when he didn't want authorial credit for his work. Not for the first time. He wondered about making the leap to fiction. At least then he could make shit up. None of this mind-numbing research. Nah, he shook his head. Even fiction, if you wanted to write a good one, needed a certain amount of research. Evan knew he had to come up with something fast. He also needed a place to live, he acknowledged, when his knock on the door elicited a welcoming groan from Rob's fiancée, Ella. "Robert, the wandering Scots back," she hollered down the hall. "Sorry, love, can't keep me away, it seems." "I suppose I'll have to let you in." She pecked him on the cheek as Rob appeared over her shoulder. "Need your bed back, mate?" "Maybe for a night or two. I'd go to a hotel, but I could do with having a brainstorming session." "You'd better make the most of the only brain on the premises while you can then," Ella chirped, quick as a whip. "I'm going out later." "So sharp. You're as witty as ever, my sweet," Evan smiled. He was well versed in Ella's brand of affection. After all, as Dolores's daughter, she had trained at the hand of the master. Rob draped an affectionate arm around her waist. "Come on in. I'm making the mother of all fry-ups." Evan slid through the tiny gap left by Ella's somewhat rigid frame and followed Rob into the kitchen. "It's not even breakfast time," he sniffed appreciatively. Why save a good thing for a fixed time of day? An hour later, with a full bloated tummy and a fresh cup of coffee in front of him, Evan was feeling awake and slightly more focused. The three of them had been batting ideas back and forth and couldn't come up with a popular consensus. Robert ticked the options off on his fingers. "Let's consider your choices. You're still vaguely attached to the homeless idea, but I'd say, unless you sign over control of your finances, you won't stick to doing it properly. Ella," he winked at her, "thinks you should try your hand at romantic fiction because she's twisted like that. Hey, I think that's fair punishment for the 6 months of my life I wasted dating him." True. And you did say you fancied having a go at fiction, Evan." Ella clicked her fingers in an aha moment. "Why not try something like that guy, the book, that they turned into a Jim Carrey movie? For a year he said yes to everything and just went with it." Evan moaned. "Sounds like a fate worse than death, acting agreeable and being portrayed by Jim Carrey, plus it's old news." "No, silly, you didn't let me finish. I'm suggesting you combine all of these half-baked ideas, or try to at least. Give Mum, or better yet me, control of your affairs for, say, 6 months. Start off with nothing, be homeless, but find a way out of London. See how fast you can turn your fortunes around without your usual backups. Do something you wouldn't usually do, take some risks. See if, without prospects or past, if it's possible to make a good life. As an extra challenge, you have to fall in love along the way, or get some sucker to fall in love with you. Write it all up as a semi-autobiographical, partially fictionalized account. The romance bit will probably be the fiction because you're hard enough to like as a jobbing author, let alone as an unwashed job." "Why are you so keen on me writing a romance?" Evan was strangely curious, even though he suspected Ella was mostly teasing. "Because you've already admitted you're too lazy to do research, and romance is the only category where you truly get away with making most of it up. The other reason is that I've yet to read a good one written by a man. Out of all the ones I've read, they're either overly macho and full of the kind of sex words women don't find sexy. For example, I am not a whore, and my vagina is not a C word. Otherwise they are drippy and have the hero or heroine die pointlessly for the sake of angst. God, I loathe angst." "That's it," she pointed at him in glee. "I challenge you to write a rags to respectability, fly by the seat of your pants, true life romance. Good enough to make women swoon. I challenge you, Evan McElroy, to both get yourself a woman and get what a woman wants to read. Evan blinked, pushed his chair back, and let a low whistle escape his lips. He was sick of pissing about. I think you're on.